Hi beautiful people. Yes, I am wearing a dress. It's just got frilly layers on it, the butterflies. It's nice and warm, so it's a good day to wear a dress. So I have decided that it is much easier to talk about hair and products and do reviews and hauls than it is to talk about things that are a little bit deeper. So my Strength Through Pain series has not yet begun. I'm rather bad at procrastinating anyhow, so this has taken longer to start than it should have, so I apologise for that. So today I'm going to talk about adoption, our story of adoption, and I may not get through everything in one go. It's I guess it's quite a long story really, and it depends how much detail I go into. So I'll just kind of start and then wing it and see how it goes, and if it's kind of becoming too much, I might split it into two. So in New Zealand, adopting a child or a baby, particularly a newborn baby, is not an easy process. 50 or 60 years ago it was the opposite. There were not enough parents to take adopted children, but now as the years have gone by, there are less and less children available for adoption in New Zealand, particularly out of family situations, so unrelated adoptions. So Luke is 11 years old, so we went through this process about 12-ish years ago. So we didn't have any choices when it came to fertility. I had a hysterectomy when I was 28, and at that point in my time I did not think that I ever wanted children. So it was done kind of quickly for medical reasons, and it never occurred to me that actually later on in time I may live to regret that decision, which of course I did. I was a registered nurse, I was a nurse manager, I was doing all the hiring and firing, the rosters, all patient cares. I was doing everything. It was a very big career, and I did quite well quite quickly, and it absorbed me and I loved it, and that was my life really. My job was kind of my baby, and my husband didn't particularly want children either. But when I came to about 32, I think 32 years old, 31 maybe, I kind of, something changed in me really suddenly, and what I wanted more than anything in the world was to be a mum. And if you've been in a similar situation, you'll know that it gets to a point where everywhere you go you see babies. It's strange how it happens, but it does, because of course there's babies everywhere, but it becomes kind of like all you think about. And I don't mean that in an unhealthy way, but it's just, the priority in your life. You suddenly want to be a mum and a parent, and that's quite a hard time. I have a lot of empathy for women with infertility problems. It's quite difficult, and people are very kind and well-meaning, and we would go to functions and people would always say, here, hold the baby, hold my baby, and absolutely well-meaning, not realising that it was actually kind of rubbing salt in the wound, so to speak. But it's always the same. People, you try to say the nicest, most helpful things to people, and sometimes you don't know how they're feeling, and it's not always the right thing to say. However, when I was about 32, I was kind of, I still enjoy my work very much, but I really, really wanted to be a mum. And so we began the process of adoption. Now I would just say two things. It is not something to be done lightly. It is a very, very difficult process and a long process. And secondly, it is for a birth mother to give you the child, the baby, is the greatest gift that anyone can give anybody in the world. It is a gift of life, and it is nearly always done for the right reasons and with love and in the best interest of the baby. So I just thought I'd start with those two things. So to begin with, you have all your medical checks, police checks, fill out screeds and screeds of papers. The adoption services tend to discourage you really. They want you to be 100% sure that you want to go down that road. And obviously a lot of people do, because last year in New Zealand there were only, I believe, 21 out of family adoptions out of the whole of New Zealand, and several hundred parents waiting to adopt, and that's getting progressively worse year by year, which is a good thing in some ways, but it's hard for people who are waiting. So we then went through, I think it was two weekends, 4 days of seminars, and again it was brought across more in a negative light than a positive light. I think they wanted you to realise what you're getting into, that it was not an easy road. They tell you things like, if your child becomes really ill, so with leukemia, you can't donate bone marrow or blood because the child is not your birth child. And there are a lot of things like that they made you think of, and that's good. I mean, you need to have thought through all those things. But we went through the seminars, and then we decided to continue. I had no doubts whatsoever. It's what I wanted to do. And so there was how it works in New Zealand is that you make a profile, and it's like putting together, so you're putting together a CV for a job. Now this is different, but this is a little bit like how it is. What you are putting together is a profile, a book as such, a folder of your life, of your husband's life, and of your combined lives. Your financial situation, your health, your holidays, your hobbies, your marriage, if you've been depressed, if you've been sick in the past, everything you can think of has to go in this profile. And it took me probably about 2 months solid time for doing this, because it's hard to know whether you're coming from the first person, like I grew up, my husband grew up, or it's difficult to know to do it the first, second or third kind of person. So it's an interesting undertaking. You want lots and lots of pictures, because the birth mums, when they decide that they're going to adopt out, all they get to see is your profile. Each birth mum will be given about 8 to 10 profiles of parents, or people are waiting to become parents, and that's all they get to see. They don't get to meet you at that stage or to learn any more about you. They just get to see a profile. So when you do a profile, you need to do it really, really well. It needs to be absolutely 100% accurate. Like I did mention in mine that I had an episode of depression, and that it was resolved, but you do need to put those things in. Your religion, it all matters, because that is all the birth mum sees. She looks through 10 profiles. She may have them for 2 or 3 weeks, and then she'll click somehow with you. It'll be something you've said or the way you present yourself. Something will click, and then at that point they'll take some time to think about it, and then they would let the social worker know, and the social worker would let you know that you had been chosen at that stage. So I did the profile. As I said, it took a long time. I put a lot of work into it, and it is something that was worth every moment of doing, because the birth mum got the original copy. I made 2 other copies, and it's an awesome thing to actually look back on your lives individually from your birth, your family, siblings, friends, and then your combined life as a couple. And it's a great thing to have, and it's something you wouldn't normally do in life, so it's an interesting undertaking. So we've been waiting, I believe, once we put the profile in, I tried to kind of carry on with life, and they tell you do not prepare a bedroom, do not get anything ready, because I guess it's because it's hard if you go into that room and it just becomes too much of a focus, and too difficult then, I think, with the waiting time. So they tell you not to have anything, not to be ready in any way, not to have a room organised, and you try and get on with your life. Once the profile's in, it's out of your hands, there's nothing you can do, so you need to keep yourself busy and just carry on. And I just carried on, working part-time at that stage. I had kind of resigned from manager, and I just wanted to help out and just take things a bit slower. So after, I think it was 8 months, actually I believe after about 6 months we were rung. There was a baby girl available, and it was between us and one other couple, Now this little girl was profoundly deaf in one ear, I believe, may have been both ears actually, it's a long time ago, and that was fine, that wouldn't have bothered us, but they were chosen for reasons to do with the birth parents. It was a slightly complicated scenario, so that was fine. And then after 8 months, it's quite funny because my husband and I very rarely argue. I'm a peacemaker, and that's not necessarily a good thing, but we don't argue very often. But that particular night we'd had a really good barney, and I was eating my tea in my bedroom, or in our bedroom, and I just remember David coming in with the phone, and he handed it to me, and I said hello and realised who it was. And it was about 6:30, so it wasn't a normal time for a social worker to be ringing you. She said, "Oh, are you sitting down?" And I said yes, 'cause I was in a pretty foul mood actually. And she said, "Well, you've been chosen by birth mum." And it was a feeling like nothing else. I can't explain how amazing that was. It was just incredible and scary and exciting and everything all at once. And so quite quickly they came around. Those two social workers came around to the house. They showed us pictures of the baby and a birth family. They explained the situation to us, and then 2 days later, on the Saturday, the birth mum was coming to our house with her parents and her two sisters. Now I can't tell you how difficult that is. It's worse than any job interview by 100 times. They come in to look at your house, your garden, you, how you relate to your partner, just everything. It's like, I want this baby more than anything in this world, and in 2 days time these people are coming to my house and I'm going to feel very much like I'm under scrutiny. And it was very stressful, I have to say. I had to have the house immaculately tidy, which is really silly because it should just be lived in and just normal. And it was normal, but it was a lot tidier than I normally have it. And it was a long day. It was an intense day. It was very difficult for the birth mother and for her parents. It was very emotional for all of them. And when they left, we really didn't have much idea at all of what their decision was. And they said that they would ring us Monday morning. And we just said, you know, take your time, you know, it's fine, just take as long as you want. It's a huge decision. And I had a good rapport with the young birth mum. We connected. I felt, you know, like her friend, and it was a good thing. So we waited, not so patiently, until Monday, and the birth mother's mother rang, because they're quite young, the grandparents are quite young, rang to say that the birth mum had decided, yes, that she wanted us to be the parents of the baby. And things happened very quickly from that time, because as I said, we had nothing. We did have a spare bedroom, but we had nothing. And within a day and a half, we had to travel to the city that this baby was located in. And I had to stay for 3 or 4 days in the hospital, because Luke was only £3.10 at full term, so that is a very, very underweight baby. He was in an incubator for 3 weeks. So I had to go to this hospital in another city and learn the ropes as such, you know, just the nappies and the feeding and the sleeping and just everything. I mean, I was a nurse, but I still didn't really know those things very well. And then David came back a day early and tried to start to get some things together, because obviously you need a lot. I mean, you can get by on less than you might think, but you still need a lot. So people were amazing. We got given so much stuff from people, and it just all came together really well. And then what happened is I came back to Christchurch, and the birth mum had chosen, she wanted to bring Luke across to us from the city that she was living in. She wanted to kind of hand him over to us herself in person. And I found that a little bit hard, because I was very scared she would change her mind. In New Zealand, birth mums can change their mind, I believe, for 14 days after handing over the baby. And I can understand that that's a good thing. I understand the reasoning absolutely 100%. And I know that in a lot of cases birth mums do change their minds, and I really, you know, it's a huge thing to do. It's massive. And if you're, particularly for someone who's very young, it's just, a shock, and it's such a huge gift to give somebody. It makes me cry to think of it, because it's a huge gift. And so many people think, oh, how can a birth mum do that? How can she give away her baby? And it's not like that at all. It's not like that one little bit. They go through a very tough time, trying to decide what is the best thing in the best interest of that baby. So I'm going to stop now, because it's 15 minutes and I haven't finished. I've got a little bit to go. So I hope that I spoke clearly enough for you, because I know I have a really quiet voice, and it's so frustrating because I try to make myself louder and I can't without yelling. So I hope you enjoyed the story up to now, but there is some more to the story, and I will finish it hopefully in the next day or two. Yeah, so it obviously we have Luke now, so it all ends well, but it's a very scary process, because it's very fragile and a very huge and amazing experience. So thank you for listening, and I hope you have an awesome day, and I love you guys. Bye bye.